Hi, I'm Pastor Paul Marzahn, and it's a joy to be with you as we do our midweek teaching on prayer. We're having a conversation recently on a book written by a friend of mine by the name of Adam Weber called Talk with God. And you may have a copy of this book, or you may have it on your Kindle like I do. And maybe that's a great supplement for you to kind of understand some of the concepts we're talking about in regards to prayer. So if you don't have one, I encourage you to pick one up. It's short and simple. It's also a great gift to give to a friend. And today we're talking about how it is that we can pray in a variety of circumstances. The first is, how do you pray when you're facing the storms of life? We actually had a whole worship series about kind of the challenge of facing the storms of life. And it's not easy when your ship is sailing and the winds hit up and, it seems like things are crashing all around you. It's been my observation through counseling and just life that there's kind of two kinds of people in the world. There's the first kind of, that are kind of preparers. When they know that a storm's coming, they're like, realizing that they need to batten down the hatches. They get the shades pulled. They go out, particularly in Minnesota where we have winter, they'll go buy extra food, thinking that the grocery stores might be closed or they can't get out in the snow. They'll get those extra supplies, like M&Ms, those important things, right? And make sure they have enough food around the house. And, maybe make sure they have their shovels and their salt so they can shovel their sidewalk. And they're just kind of like, they're going to hunker down for the storm, right? Maybe get some extra videos or download some things on Netflix, whatever it is. And they're going to be able to say, okay, now I'm prepared for the storm, right? And then there's other people like, just say, you know what, the storm's going to hit. I don't care. I'm just going to enjoy it, right? And you see those people, whether it be like, you watch my Facebook page ever? When it's hailing out, I usually walk outside with my camera and go, look at it's hailing. This is awesome. Ouch, ouch, ouch. As I'm filming the hailing as it's coming down, right? Or if there's a snowstorm out, I'll go outside in the snowshoeing and take pictures of it, right? Because I think it's fun to be out in the storm. The reality is, either way is not right or wrong, but we have to face the storms. And so as we're doing prayer, you have to think about this. John Bunyan says it this way: the best prayers have often more groans than words. The best prayers often have more groans than words. In other words, it's not important what you say when you're going through a storm of life. It's letting God know that you're struggling. So think about that. Maybe you're dealing with the loss of a loved one. Like I said, recently I was just at a funeral. That's why I'm wearing my suit today, is to deal with that loss of a loved one, that grief that you go through. I was just recently came from the hospital where someone got a very poor health report. And as I've met with them and prayed with them, I know that they were struggling. They're facing that storm, that their life may have a shorter time span than they expected. Or maybe you're going through a rough season. Maybe it'd be at work or something else, but you're just always feeling down or feeling discouraged. Maybe you're the ending of a relationship, whether it be a dating relationship or a marriage, and it's just feeling tough right now. Perhaps the loss of a dream. Maybe you had this expectation of you're going to be able to have a certain kind of job or a certain kind of wealth or a certain kind of house or a certain kind of boat or whatever that dream was of expectation. And now you realize you might not meet that dream. Or maybe you've just heard some unexpected news. Something that you didn't expect about your children or about a friend. Or maybe an unwanted transition. I had somebody come into my office today that lost their job, and they were just like, I didn't see this coming. I thought I had another 10 years before retirement and I was going to be able to stay in the same company, and now all of a sudden they're looking for a job and they're in their mid-50s and they're struggling to find one. Or maybe you just failed at something. Maybe you tried to start a business. Maybe you tried to build something and it didn't work and you just failed. And you feel terrible about it. You see, there's storms that we experienced as kids and storms when we saw our parents weather. But no matter what kind of storm, they always affect us. You see, some storms show up because of somebody else's actions and decisions, because of somebody else's junk, somebody else's sin, someone else's mistake. I had someone recently I had a conversation with, and they're just still struggling with 20 years later after being abused as a child. Now, they did nothing to deserve that. But yet 20 years later, it still haunts them. They still struggle with the sin of somebody else that's now caused a storm in their life. And though we hate to admit it, there are storms that we brought upon ourselves. There are those storms that we brought by our own actions, dumb choices we've made. I know in my own life, there are numerous times where I should have made a better, more positive choice. And when I made that negative choice, then those repercussions came and hit me. And they came slamming in like a storm on life. And maybe that's happened to you, where you've done something that you're not very proud of. And then what happens is you start to reap the rewards of that choice. But storms can hit us in so many different ways, seemingly from out of nowhere. And when they do, they leave damage in their wake. So what does prayer do? Well, prayer helps us to put things in perspective. It helps us to enter into God in the midst of the struggle. I know that for myself that it's been one of those things where I've turned to time and time again when I've gone through a struggle, when I've been hurting, or I've seen others go through a struggle and I'm praying on their behalf. I know one time I really became deeper in prayer was when my dad, who many of you know, died of ALS. And as he was going through this progressive disease where he at first lost the ability to walk and then was in a wheelchair and then lost even use of his hands. He was able to drive for a while with just his hands in a wheelchair accessible van. And then little by little he got to the point where he couldn't even travel outside the home, where he had to have a food tube. He had to have a tracheotomy put in and suction the fluids out of his lungs every 20 minutes. And then eventually got to the point where he couldn't even speak anymore. And little by little, I began to see the struggles that he had. And as a pastor, sometimes I think about that, not just in my own struggles, but the struggles I see others go through. And how it is that those struggles can tear on them, and they can leave kind of a damage, if you will, in their wake. I've been through people who've gone through miscarriages in our congregation. I've been through people who've gone through suicide, broken marriages, job loss. And the list goes on, but there are those people who seem to survive those, and those that seem to get through them, if you will. And there are others where it just seems to devastate them. And one of the biggest differences I've seen is prayer. Storms are a fact of life. They're going to come. But I truly believe that God listens to our voices when we cry for help. And so I know that my kids, I've always had bedrooms somewhere near a bedroom or Deb bedroom, and we would often hear them, especially when they're younger, if they had an issue. Because why? They'd cry for help. I'm thirsty, I'm sick, I'm whatever, And just the other day we had our little grandson Bellamy over, and guess what he needed? He needed something because he was not feeling good. In fact, he threw up all over, and we got the joy of cleaning that up. But as we heard him, cry for help, it's the first thing we did. Boom. We left our bedroom, we picked him up, we carried him in, took care of him. And I believe that's what God does when we cry for help. We say, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, I'm going through something, and I can't handle it, I can't deal with it. So as we think about a parent caring for their kid in the same way God cares for us, there's a story in the Bible where it talks about Jesus being in a storm with his disciples, and they're all upset because he's asleep in the boat, and they're trying to wake him up, and they're like, aren't you scared? Aren't you scared? There's a storm, we're all going to die, And you could think, well, Jesus doesn't care. He's sleeping. Why is he sleeping? Why doesn't he get up and put the storm away and, calm them all down and all these things? And I think one of the realizations I came to, the reason he's sleeping is he puts his trust in God. Like I mentioned before, when my daughter was driving the car and I'm able to sleep, I know that she can know that I trust in her. Likewise, when we have our trust in God, we don't seem to panic as much. And when those storms of life come, we know that there's one we can turn to, who we can trust, that they're in control and they're going to take care of it. So if you're struggling in your prayers regarding things that are going bad, I'd encourage you to think about how it is that you can put your trust in God. Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we do thank you for this time together to just reflect on your word and to think about the storms of life that we sometimes go through. And Lord, I just pray if there's somebody listening to this message today, Lord, that you would sometime help them deal with whatever storms they're going through. If there's somebody listening to this message today, Lord, I pray that you would give them a spirit of encouragement to know that they are loved by you. And most of all, Lord, that they would put their trust in you, to know that because you are with them, that you will continue to oversee anything that they're going through. You are in the boat with them. You're not standing on the shore. You're riding with them through that storm, Lord. And I pray that they feel a sense of your encouragement and a sense of your presence. And I just pray today, Lord, that anybody listening to this message may continue to grow in prayer, continue to cry out to you as their heavenly Abba, their Father, their parent, Lord, that loves them so much and wants to help them. I pray for these things all in your name. Amen.
Dear Heavenly Father, 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 why do giraffes look so funny? Thank you for preparing horses on the earth. Please bless the podcast to be good so there will be wisdom. Please help me to never go to the dentist. Thank you for this